are talking Goatman, directed and written by Trey Murphy, who also has a small role in the movie. And this is a very, very low budget horror movie. And it's one that's easily trashed, let me put it like that. But is there something to this movie that I think maybe some people are missing? Maybe. I'll tell you a little bit about it. So, Goatman, and we have had various movies about the subject of a Goatman before. This is just the latest, the 2023 version. And it primarily focuses on this news crew who are sent out into the woods to try and find evidence of a local urban legend, the Goatman, because there's a variety of people that have gone missing in these woods. And we have this news crew with a local kind of guide trying to traverse these woods, and ultimately the network, the kind of the news network, ultimately wants to fake stuff to try and kind of get ratings boosts and things like this. But the crew are not aware of this. However, they do come across a dangerous presence in the woods. Let me just kind of say this. But there may be more than just the Goatman. There may well actually be a group of kind of redneck cannibals in the woods as well. What will happen? You will have to watch the movie and find out. So, I watched this movie, and on the surface of it, you can easily dismiss this one as a trashy film. And there's lots of reasons why that is, which we're going to come on to. I can't help but think, to be honest with you, there's so many like fluffs in regards to the technical abilities on display here. I think it is this on purpose, but we're going to come on to that. But is there anything that can be said about this movie in the positive? But every review I've read, no one says anything positive. But I'm going to try, because I do think there's a couple of nuggets here that are actually buried in really crappy, low budget kind of surrounding material. Number one, our main actress, who is this kind of like the news reporter, the face of the camera, etc. I gotta say, I didn't think she was a bad actress. I actually thought her performance in this was far better than the movie deserved. And there's one or two other kind of like performances. I thought, do you know what? That's not actually bad acting, to be fair. Considering the kind of the kind of shambolic nature of some of the aspects of this movie, I've got to say that yeah, there isn't actually some bad acting from some of the characters, from some of the cast in this movie. The film also is more interested in having a kind of satire approach to kind of like American news, and that's what I think the main focus of this story is really about. I mean, the actual movie is more about deconstructing how, news is portrayed, certainly in America, because obviously it's an American film, and how it's kind of manipulated, and how people are essentially slave to trends and slave to kind of like, what's popular, the short attention spans. So the movie spends a lot of time kind of dealing with that, rather than overt kind of horror elements to it. Which I've got to say, it's an interesting and timely perspective. Is this the movie to do it in? I don't know if that was the right decision, to be honest with you. But it's kind of one of these films where it's snuck it in there because it wants to get, it's packaged as a kind of like a creature feature horror film, but instead we're kind of getting this kind of a little bit of commentary about how news is delivered and how people can be easily led and how people are manipulated and things like this. And the kind of like the position that corporations kind of play in people's lives. So you might think, bloody, that sounds quite that sounds quite heavy. That sounds quite deep. And it's not like this movie is a serious kind of like dramatization of these kind of like. The impact of how kind of like the news corporations kind of ultimately shape people, but it certainly kind of like introduces the idea to it. So you know, there's that. There are a couple of mildly amusing moments. Our lead reporter, for example, is called April Neil, and someone even makes the joke in the movie where they call, is that like Oprah O'Neil from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and stuff? So it's kind of like they had an Easter egg and then they kind of referenced their own Easter egg, that kind of thing. So there's a couple of kind of humorous moments here and there. There's a couple of kind of nods to horror films and horror film cliches. There's quite a funny scene, for example, where a character comments on how in movies he hates just dialogue dumps that kind of just go through the kind of like what you need to know about the plot and things like this. So there's one or two kind of moments here where I feel the movie does have some kind of somewhat of amusing kind of comments. How does the horror stuff actually kind of fit in? Is there anything that's kind of worthwhile? Well, the Goatman sadly is a little lacking, which we'll come on to, but the actual stuff that's done with the cannibals, these kind of rednecks, I think fares a little better, and they seem a little bit more kind of threatening and things like that. I mean, they just appear in the middle of the woods, and I don't know, I mean, they're not exactly kind of fleshed out or anything, but you know, they seemed quite threatening, and there's a couple of reasonable kind of gore shots. So, you know, that's what I can say on the positive side. So let's now transition to what does not work. Okay, here's the biggest issue for me, and it's understandably why this movie gets so trash, is because it just is so cheaply put together, and it's so bad. I can't help but think, was this an idea? Was this like the idea to have this like very kind of amateurish film like edited together and stuff with some very bad technical issues? What do I mean? So for example, we'll hear, you know, we're meant to believe that these people are out in the woods and we'll have the camera and they're kind of talking as they're walking through the woods, but we'll hear traffic in the background and things like this. There's a scene, for example, where we have a group of characters that are talking, and in one angle you can hear a plane going overhead, and in another angle the plane isn't there, and it kind of cuts between the two kind of shots, so to speak. So in the one shot you can hear the plane, in the other shot you can't, but it's the same scene with the same people kind of talking. So there's a couple of like issues where you'll go out of focus. There's like an audio kind of artifact in one scene. There's just lots of kind of like obvious kind of technical issues that I think surely someone would have picked this up. Surely this can't have been left in with either people haven't bothered or they just like, that's fine, or not even noticed. It's just very, very kind of shoddily put together. The actual kind of story, like I've said, is more interested in talking to you about how media manipulates people, which I think is an interesting idea. But I don't know if that's necessarily what people want. But, you know, there is a Goatman in this movie. We do have cannibals as well. I think there's enough, maybe, to kind of satisfy people who want that sort of stuff. But I just don't know if people would be interested in if you're watching a low-budget horror, you probably just want to see creature killing people and things like that. There are some elements here that are introduced that I didn't think really worked. I mean, we have these like adverts that are meant to, I guess because we're meant to be watching this news channel, so we have like these commercial breaks that both have these kind of like fake adverts for products. But the director also advertises his previous film, Amityville Cult, twice. Thinking, really? Like, really? I mean, it's like, come on. So there's some odd kind of like interjections that I don't know if that really helped. I mean, I said that I like the main actress's performance, but let me be clear, that a lot of the other characters, you know, their performances are probably what you're going to expect for a low budget movie, probably costing no more than kind of $5,000. They're as you are going to expect. Let me just kind of say that. The The Goatman itself, it's just a dude on stilts with makeup. I mean, it looks pretty disappointing. You know, it's, again, we have to kind of like realise that this is a very low budget movie, and maybe the idea here, it could have worked maybe if we had kept it maybe in shadow, and or we didn't really see it. But I don't think the movie's necessarily wanting to kind of like make a genuine kind of creepy kind of horror film. It's more wanting to make silly schlock. So therefore, it's, you know, when we do see our Goatman, he's just there. It looks like some guy from like a pagan festival that you would see, like, you know, in the kind of like a march down the street in certainly in England, when you get a few of those in the kind of the more rural areas, like Green Man Festival or something. But yeah, you'll get these kind of like people dressed up and kind of looking like that. But it certainly doesn't look like a believable movie monster. Let me just kind of just say that. There is, to be honest with you, a lot of banal dialogue in this movie. Even though a character, as I say, makes kind of comment on how he hates movies that do that. This movie does that, exactly that. Certainly in the first act here. And I get it's trying to have this kind of character work, but I don't think it particularly... it's a lot of telling, you know. And it's just a rough-looking film overall. But like I said, I mean, I can see there's some elements here that are interesting, and but I've got to be honest with you, I think they'll go mostly unnoticed, because this movie is just such a kind of like poorly constructed film on a technical level that I think maybe some of the good ideas that it does have will just be completely overshadowed by it. And I don't know if the idea of having these kind of like little commercial breaks really work. For me, I'm going to give this movie I'll have to say a 3 out of 10. I was going to say a 4 because I do like some of the ideas there, but as a package, I've got to be honest about what this film is genuinely going to be kind of like perceived as. So it's going to be a 3 out of 10, but there is some interesting stuff here if you really want to see, you know, just a very rough looking film around it. Have you seen it? What did you think? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time.